Welcome back to AlgoBot, the channel where we take apart automated trading strategies and explore exactly how they think. I'm your host here at AlgoBot, and in today's video we're breaking down an expert advisor for MetaTrader 5 called Narrow Range Expansion. This is a pure price action strategy, which means there are no indicators involved at all. Instead, it watches for the quiet, coiling moments in the market and tries to ride the burst of movement that so often follows them. By the end of this video, you'll understand how it spots those coils, how it decides to enter, and how it manages its risk. Let's dive in. So what exactly does narrow range expansion do? At its heart, this expert advisor is built on one of the oldest and most reliable observations in price action, markets brief. They move between phases of contraction, where price coils into a tight, quiet range, and phases of expansion, where price breaks free and trends. This strategy is designed to detect the moment of contraction and position itself for the expansion that frequently follows. The key building block is what traders call a narrow range bar, sometimes known as the NR7 setup. A narrow range bar is simply a candle whose high-to-low range is the smallest of the last several completed bars. When the EA sees one of these, it treats it as a coil, a moment where the market is quietly storing energy before a directional move. Because this is a pure price action system, there are no moving averages, no oscillators, and no lagging indicators anywhere in the logic. Everything the strategy needs is read directly from the candles themselves, their highs, their lows, and their closing prices. That makes the behavior transparent and genuinely easy to reason about. This EA trades a single symbol on a single time frame, whichever chart you attach it to. In concept, it can be applied to forex pairs, indices, metals, or any instrument that alternates between quiet and active periods. In terms of who it suits, this is an educational example aimed at traders who are curious about breakout systems and want to see how volatility contraction can be turned into a mechanical, rule-based set of entries and exits. It is fully symmetric, meaning it treats long and short opportunities with identical, mirrored rules. Remember, everything we cover here is for learning purposes only. Let's walk through the mechanics step by step. The strategy only ever acts when a bar has fully closed, so it works on completed candles rather than reacting to every single tick. Each time a new bar opens, the EA looks back at the candle that just finished. First, it asks a simple question. Was that just completed bar the narrowest of the last several bars? The number of bars it compares against is set by the RangeLookback parameter, which defaults to 7. If the most recent candle has a smaller high-to-low range than every one of those previous bars, the EA flags it as a narrow range bar, a coil. When a coil is found, the strategy arms a setup. It records the coil bar's high and its low. Together, these two levels form what we can think of as a breakout fence. The distance between them, the coil's range, becomes the strategy's fundamental unit of risk. Now the EA enters a waiting period. Over the next few bars, controlled by the max weight bars parameter, which defaults to 3, it watches for price to close decisively beyond the fence. To avoid being faked out by a tiny nudge past the edge, it requires the close to clear the fence by a small buffer. That buffer is set by BreakoutBufferPct, defaulting to 10% of the coil's range. If a bar closes above the fence high plus the buffer, the EA signals along. If a bar closes below the fence low minus the buffer, it signals a short. The rules are perfectly symmetric. The strategy also allows only one open position per magic number at a time, so it will not stack trades on the same setup. And if no breakout happens within the wait window, the coil is considered stale and is quietly abandoned. Risk management flows directly from the coil itself. The stop loss is placed a multiple of the coil range away from entry, set by stop range multiple, which defaults to 1 full coil range. The take profit is then a reward to risk multiple of that stop, controlled by RewardRiskRatio, defaulting to 2. So by default, the strategy risks 1 coil range in order to target 2. Both the stop and the target are attached the very moment the trade opens, so every position is fully defined from the start. Let's look at the actual MetaQuotes language code that runs inside MetaTrader 5. At the top, you can see the input parameters. These are the dials you can adjust in the EA's settings. RangeLookback sets how many bars the coil must be the narrowest of. Raising it demands a more significant contraction before a setup forms. Max weight bars controls how long the strategy keeps watching for a breakout before giving up on the coil. BreakoutBufferPct decides how far beyond the fence the close must travel. Increasing it filters out weak breaks, but may also delay your entry. Stop range multiple scales the stop loss as a multiple of the coil range, and reward risk ratio sets how far the target sits relative to that stop. Finally, lots is simply the order size. Below the inputs is the heart of the strategy, the breakout logic that runs once per new bar. When a setup is armed, the code increments a weight counter, then calculates the buffer as the buffer percentage times the coil range. It builds two booleans. Broke up is true when the completed bar's close is above the setup high plus the buffer, and broke down is true when the close is below the setup low minus the buffer. If either one is true, the EA checks that it has no existing position for this magic number, and then it calls try-enter, passing broke up. That single boolean decides direction. True opens a long, false opens a short. Either way, the setup is then disarmed so it cannot fire twice. And if neither breakout occurs and the weight counter reaches max weight bars, the coil is abandoned. Inside try-enter, which isn't shown here, the stop and target are computed from the coil range exactly as we described. It's clean, readable, and entirely driven by price. Let's bring it all together on the chart. On screen, you can see price moving along, with two horizontal lines marking the breakout fence, which is the high and low of the narrow range coil bar. Watch the first coil form. Notice how that candle is much tighter than the bars around it, its range squeezed small. That's exactly the contraction the strategy is waiting for. The EA records its high and its low and arms the setup. A couple of bars later, price pushes upward and a candle closes clearly above the upper fence, beyond the buffer. That triggers the buy entry, marked on the chart. The stop loss sits one coil range below the entry, and the take profit sits two coil ranges above it. As the expansion leg unfolds, price climbs steadily and tags the take profit level, closing the long trade for a winning move in this illustration. Now watch the market settle again near the highs. A second narrow range bar forms, another tight, quiet candle that becomes a fresh coil. The EA records its high and low as a new fence. This time, price rolls over, and a candle closes decisively below the lower fence, minus the buffer. That fires the sell entry, shown by the sell marker. The stop loss is placed one coil range above the entry, and the take profit sits two coil ranges below. Price then falls away in the expansion leg and reaches the take profit, closing the short. Notice how the logic is perfectly mirrored. The same coil and break idea works in both directions, and risk is always measured from the size of the coil itself. This is only an illustration of the mechanics, not a prediction of how any real market will actually behave. And that brings us to the end of our breakdown of the narrow range expansion expert advisor. We covered the core idea of volatility, contraction, and expansion, how the strategy spots a narrow range coil, how it builds a breakout fence from that coil, and how it manages every trade with a stop and target measured directly from the coil's range. We also walked through the actual MetaTrader 5 code and visualized both a long and a short trade on the chart. Remember, everything in this video is for educational purposes only and is not financial advice. If you found this breakdown helpful, please like the video, subscribe for more MetaTrader 5 strategy analyses, and leave a comment telling us which strategy you'd like us to take apart next. You can find more at www.algobot.live. Past performance does not guarantee future results. Trade responsibly.